大家好 ，Welcome to our Mandarin Lunch and Learn。欢迎大家来参加我们的午间中文。我是申展 ，My name is 申展廖 ，Head of the School of Chinese Studies at China Institute. I'm here with my colleague 智仁。智仁 ，Can you say hi?
Hi, everybody. My name is 智仁.
Well, 智仁 is the man behind the Confucius email account. And we do have a guest speaker today, who I will introduce later. We are excited to continue the series on a monthly basis this fall. When we started Lunch and Learn in April, we found for those of us love learning Chinese language, literature, or perhaps just to broaden our understanding of the culture a little bit in more depth, one session at a time, may help us to carry on life as we are going through so many changes. I wish we could start the fall season on a very different note, but regardless, we learned that the series worked in spring. So here we are continuing the series with an updated format. First part, we will have a read-aloud together session of a selected poem in Chinese. The second part, I will introduce our guest speaker with a Q&A from the group briefly. And the third part, if we do have time, we will have a breakout session where you will be grouped by language levels to practice reading the poem or have a conversation in Mandarin Chinese. So please now in the chat room, self-identify your language levels. A for beginners, B for everybody else from intermediate to advanced. It's not a perfect system, but we can have a smaller group to practice more in speaking Mandarin. Please note we do record the session except for the breakout session. So the recording will be available on China Institute's YouTube channel. So please allow me just spend a few seconds to share my screen. And we will start today's session. Oh, just a quick update. Over the past few months, we are building out our new classrooms and the auditorium on the second floor of our building in Lower Manhattan. Starting September 28th, we are offering a variety of Chinese language classes at all levels, classical and contemporary Chinese literature, courses on philosophy like Dao De Jing, as well as art classes on Chinese music and brush painting. Before we go back to our space in January, that is the plan, we are excited to have a full slate of classes and programs this coming fall. I do encourage everyone to check out our website or sign up our e-news, or better yet, join us as a member to stay informed and connected to this bustling community. We do appreciate your support, and now more than ever, we need to support each other. So I thank you for joining today's session and stay connected. Here is the name, Du Mu. Du Mu is one of the most famous poets in the late Tang Dynasty, and many of you may know it's one of the most powerful dynasties in China, politically and culturally, from 7th to early 10th century. Poem, as translated in Chinese, 诗, is in fact a genre of poetry in Chinese tradition, matured to its peak during Tang Dynasty, to the point that when 诗 is mentioned in China, it's usually referred as 唐诗. There are several 唐诗 we have read in spring, which you can find from our YouTube channel. As it's the beginning of the fall, we selected one of Du Mu's popular poems, 山行. Shan literally means mountain. 行 means travel or trip. So the title, A Trip to the Mountain. The poem describes the scenery in the autumn, allegedly in the 9th century. However, the beauty is nevertheless transcending time and space. Before we jump into the poem, let me just briefly introduce Du Mu. We know he's known to enjoy wine, which is indicated in this painting from Qing Dynasty, 17th century. And by the way, which Chinese poets that we know doesn't enjoy wine anyway. But this, in fact, well, we know that he only reflects the imagination from admirers generations later. Du Mu's personal story on record seems very brief and not so remarkable. He was from a family with high status, yet declining. He passed the official exam to serve the imperial court. However, his career was far from satisfactory. What's known about him until today are his poems, especially quatrains, short poems with only 4 lines. His quatrains are compacted with colors, emotions, and meanings, subtly underlining his regrets and heartbreaks in life. So now let's take a look at Shan Xing. Shan Xing, A Trip to the Mountain in its entirety. The English translation is by Mr. Ben Wang, who's a senior lecturer at China Institute, especially specialized in classical Chinese literature. Forlorn in the Rain is the book that he published in 2018, a collection of his favorite classical poetries and his translations. And Shan Xing is one of them. So some of you may recognize that this is a 七言绝句, a pentasyllabic quatrain. 7 characters each line and 4 lines in total. In most cases, it's a 七言绝句. Sorry, heptasyllabic quatrain, if I said it differently, heptasyllabic quatrain. So now let's read aloud line by line. For some of the new friends, let me just explain how this would go very briefly. The first line is the phonetic writing of Chinese pronunciation, pinyin. The second line is in characters. For each Chinese written words, it's a character. The third line, highlighted in blue, is the literal translation of each character. So you can see that together they don't make much sense. What makes sense is the 4th and the 5th line, which indicates the poetic translation of the line. So I will read the line twice. The first time, I will read each character and pause briefly. Please repeat after me. I cannot hear you, but I know you can repeat in front of the screen and listening to the pronunciation and follow as closely, as accurately as you can. And if you can, please also just read the English literal and poetic translation so that we can get the meaning across. For the session, we don't have enough time to explain the meaning of each word, but with everything on the screen, we hope that to serve the purpose to understand Chinese, practice pronunciation, and also get connected with the meaning of the poem. And the second time, I will pause in the middle as the rhythm goes and allow everyone to follow. and we move on to the next line. Okay, here we go. 远上寒山石径峡 The last character, many of you know the character would know that its pronunciation is usually 斜, but in this poem for rhyme, well, it's pronounced as 峡. All right, second time. So this time, if you could relate to the meaning and try how your reading of the poem can express how you feel about the poem. I'm trying that myself. Here we go. 远上寒山石径峡白云生处有人家白云生处有人家停车坐爱风铃晚停车坐爱风铃晚霜叶红鱼二月花霜叶红鱼二月花 That's the entire poem. 绝句 quatrain. 4 lines, very brief. So the last line, 霜叶红鱼二月花 reminds me of the foliage in the forest here on the East Coast. So splendid that we can instantly agree with Du Mu. The 4 leaves can be more beautiful than blossoming in spring. And yet we have to keep in mind the natural scene of a mountain in its peak autumn color, no matter how beautiful it is never going to be what the Tangshi is all about. Nature always serves as a metaphor for human experiences and feelings. A trip to the mountain could be taken as a journey in life. The fact that the mountain, shan, is a han shan, a cool or cold mountain, may suggest the journey is not quite smooth. Hence, the path is rocky and slant, xia. And what could the contrast between the autumn splendor and the spring blossom symbolize? The twilight years versus the thriving youth? Is it a melancholy reflection of one's youthful years, or the poet taking pride in life experiences and maturity coming with ages, or both? And if, instead of a reader of the poem, imagine ourselves looking at a Chinese painting with a bird's view of the mountain, largely with wild nature, but human dwellings are hidden here and there, covered by rising white clouds. Then, with a close-up, as we observe the woods around us and pay attention to the breathtakingly colorful leaves. There are many layers of a shi that we can dig into, or depending on our own imagination and perspectives, that is related to our life experiences. One reason for me to pick this particular poem, as it's not only related to the season, but also perhaps, I hope, it resonates at a certain level with what we all experience and feel now. So with that, shall we read the poem again? This time without pinyin, I will read from the title to the last line once. Please follow me. 山行，杜牧。远上寒山石径斜，白云深处有人家。停车坐爱枫林晚，霜叶红于二月花。That's the poem. So now I will stop sharing, and I'm also pleased that we have a guest who will talk about something very unique of Chinese language and culture. We know that for nature to symbolize our experiences and feelings, it's not uniquely Chinese. But what my guest speaker will talk about is something uniquely Chinese. That is the written form of Chinese language, the characters. We know perhaps that Chinese is a pictographic language. That is to say, the written form denotes the image of the meaning, which is in fact very important for understanding Chinese poetry. Unlike English, the written language is more related to the sound of the meaning. So today it is my pleasure that my friend, Miss Maya Zhang, she's going to share her knowledge of Chinese characters, especially related to our poem today. You probably remember I had 3 characters highlighted in red. That's what Maya's focus will be. Maya, could you? Yeah. So sure. just quickly, Maya has been teaching extensively at China Institute, the United Nations, as well as schools both in the United States and internationally. So I'm very honored and also pleased that Maya spends her precious time to join us today. So now I'm going to turn to Maya. Thank you, Maya.
谢谢深圳，大家好，很高兴见到你们，我是玛雅。好，我们看到屏幕上的这个字 ，the first character I picked for today is 上。上。As you can see my finger, so this character looks just like my finger indicating I'm going up. And then you may guess, and then the down 下是不是这样子的 ？Yes, you're right. 你是对的。上上 meaning literal meaning is to go up, to rise, to attend. So let's look at the different stages of this character. Shang has gone through many stages in history before becoming today's form. The oracle form of Shang actually look the same as the character R, 2. So horizontal line shorter and the horizontal line underneath it, that's longer, which means 2. However, during the Bronze time, in order to distinguish the 2 and Shang, people decided to add a vertical line for Shang. During the Qin dynasty, Qin, when the Emperor Qin Shi Huang commanded to unify Chinese characters, Shang looked like this in seal, the one on the right side, seal script. The curved vertical line, as you can see, it looks like a wavy line, here indicating that it's not always easy to go up, or metaphorically also means it's not always smooth to rise, to do things to get higher. Typical usage of shang, as you can see, as a verb, it means go up, attend, get on, above, on. Those are the preposition meaning. And also shang can be used as a noun, meaning previous, upper, or higher. For example, 我们说上学、上班、上楼、上飞机。As preposition, we use it as 桌子上，在上面。As a noun, we can use it as in words like 上衣、上层、上星期、上帝。上帝 God 上帝 it's way up above us. So in general, the meaning of shang is to go up or attend, or something that's higher or superior. Now I would like to invite you to bring out your finger. If you can, follow me to write this character. Try to air write it. Go vertically, vertical, and horizontal, shorter. That starts from the middle of the vertical line, and then the longer horizontal line on the bottom. Also the vertical line goes in the middle. Looks like a symmetrical shape. Shang. The next character I'm going to talk about is 人. I picked this character, 人, meaning human being or people, because I remember my calligraphy teacher used to tell me 人 is the hardest Chinese character to write. Back then, I was full of doubt. After I heard that, I was thinking, hardest? How come? Why? It only contains 2 strokes. That's easy. I wrote it right there, right away. However, as I grew and learned more and more about Chinese culture, Chinese characters, I understood why he said that. So these are the evolutions of how 人 changed throughout the years. 4,000 years ago, it looked like a 人 doing some farm work. In the middle, the bronze looks thinner, also doing some work, maybe yin and yang also. And then during the seals script, 人 become more like today, standing up and bowing action. Actually, bowing is what people used to do in China when they meet other people or greet other people to show respect and humbleness. So the basic meanings of 人, as we can see, meaning 人 person, people, human being, and the extended meaning can be life. So we use it to say 大人. Of course, you say 小人 meaning little kids. 大人 是 adults. 小人 is not little kids. It's metaphorically meaning somebody has no integrity. We say 小人. That's the fun part about Chinese characters. 大人小人. And then also extendedly means 人生, adding 生, birth, 人生, human and life become your whole life, 人生, human and birth. Likewise, I wanted to invite you again to burn out your finger and write this character with me. You may contemplate, this is not hard, but the lesson I learned later on in my life and after taking several years of calligraphy classes, I realized it is hard because it only contains 2 characters. The more strokes are there, the easier to form the structure and have the whole character look nice, or at least not too ugly. But with only 2 strokes, it's sometimes hard to control the stroke and make it look balanced. And then as I grew, also I learned 人 has many meaning, how it looks and how we function as a human being and how we find center in our lives. Also indicating as a human being, we need to have support from one another. And then we also need to balance in yang or in life and entertain, learning, working. And also it's not easy to just be a simple and balanced human being. So I now understood why my teacher said that many years ago. The third character I picked today is this character that I think a lot of Chinese learners, they would learn, the first day of learning Chinese, they would learn this phrase, 我爱你. Correct, that means I love you, 我爱你, I. As you can see, originally on the left side, it's directly seal radical, seal script. It skipped the oracle and bronze because I is a comparatively more abstract idea compared with pictographic character like 人 and indicative character like 上. Because back then people first invented something concrete and then they had them written on different materials or tools or means that they could hold off. But I came later because it's comparatively abstract. As you can see the character in the middle, there's a heart, and up and down there are 2 hands, indicating I love you. I use my both hands and then show you my heart in my palm. And then during the clerical time, that's Donghan, it's about 100 AD. I is written as if it's a human being or a person standing or dancing to showing emotion. So that's also extended meaning of I also means emotions, feelings. And then on the far right side, you can see 2 characters. On the left side, I, the difference, there is a heart in the middle, this part. And on the right side, omitted that part. Instead, underneath there is a character 有, means friend or friendly. So the reason why I picked this character, number 1 is because it's very frequently used in daily life. Number 2 is because this character went through the character simplification, which happened in about 1950s. Chairman Mao decided we need to simplify our characters because we need to have more people being able to read. So I think a lot of it, this character aroused a lot of debate because I become today's form that lost the heart, the essence of I. So a lot of people say, how can you love without a heart? Well, this is also my question. Anyways, I can't complain. The character is simplified. It's easier to write and learn. But as a Chinese lover, as a Chinese cultural ambassador, I do think it's actually, for me, I like the I with the heart in the middle. and then you can make your own decision. 爱 as a verb means love, to have romantic feeling for somebody, something. As a noun, it means love, relationship, or hobby, 爱好. As a verb, also sometimes we use it in a phrase like easily become or tend to do something. For example, I love you, 我爱你，我爱你，你爱我，他爱你，你爱他. We used this, I think, a lot when we were practicing sentence pattern. And then 爱人, someone we love. 他是我爱人, spouse, my partner. 爱情, 爱干净. If somebody 爱干净 means somebody loves to keep things in order and neat and tidy. 爱生病 means this person easily gets sick. 爱生病. Again, I would invite you to write this 爱, hopefully with your love of Chinese, but without the heart in the middle with this character. Let's write it together. So the left slanting and 1, 2, 3 short strokes, and then underneath, and then without the heart there's a 友 means friend. Okay. I hope today's introduction, I think it's more of a gateway or an introduction of some of the Chinese characters. I hope this can at least make you become more interested in the evolution of Chinese characters or some rationales behind it or stories behind them. Hope you liked it.
Thank you, Maya. Thank you. So before we go into the breakout session, I just want to open the floor to everyone. If anybody has any questions for Maya or me, we can, because, well, before we go into the breakout session, Maya 老师 has to go back to her class. She is in school today with her students, and this is her lunch break. So if you have any questions, particularly for Maya 老师, well, this is the time. You can unmute yourself, and 智仁老师, please make sure everybody can unmute themselves. And if any questions, yeah.
Maya 老师，这算感谢你的，很有意思的。
谢谢，很高兴你很喜欢。
谢谢，
谢谢你。
谢谢，很清楚。
谢谢你们，很高兴能跟你们一起学习。
好的, so again, if you have any questions later, you can either put in the chat box or you can email us. We will be happy to forward to Maya 老师 if it's related to her part of the presentation. And now, perhaps we can say 再见 to Maya 老师。
再见，Maya。
再见，
老师，
很高兴。
老师。
再见。